Hello and welcome to Comic Drink, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drink. Recently on Twitter, I put out a request for you guys to send me some of your unpopular Batman opinions, so I have a few right here that I'm going to read and give you my take on them and see if my opinion lines up and a bit more of my thoughts. So the first one actually comes from Lucas Dynamite, who says Batman and Robin is not as bad as people think. Now, I'm going to assume that you're talking about the movie Batman and Robin and not the Grant Morrison run of Batman and Robin, which is what... If you want to talk about comic books, that'd be the case. But yeah, Batman and Robin is definitely not the worst movie in the world, and I think it's still a bad film, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as people think, especially if you look at it as it's the Adam West TV show being brought to a modern era, and all the silliness of like the Bat credit card and the ice puns and all that stuff. It's not so bad. It's at least so bad that it's good and funny in that respect, and I grew up on it as a kid, and I loved it as a kid. It was entertaining, bright, flashy, and not everything is meant for adults, and that's fine. You don't need to take everything too seriously. So yeah, no, I totally feel that. At Solid Raiden 98 says, I really dislike Harley Quinn. For me, she's just not a good villain and really annoying. Now, I would have to disagree with that and agree with it. I think that Harley Quinn worked really well in her original appearance in Batman the Animated Series, and I really like how she's portrayed in some of the other external mediums, like in Injustice: Gods Among Us. I think that's one of the best representations of Harley Quinn that we've seen in a long time, but I'm not a big fan of the modern era of Harley Quinn, where they've made her a little too Deadpool-y, where she's too LOL means and oh look at me, I'm psychotic. I'm also not a fan of how I've seen girls post like, I'm his Harley, not understanding that the whole point is that that's an abusive, psychological, and physically abusive relationship. And none of that, please. Also, call me old-fashioned, but I liked it when Harley Quinn looked like a Harlequin instead of what she's doing now. Now, granted, it's a good design, and it can be very, very sexy, especially with how certain people draw her. But no, I'm a big fan of the classic Harley Quinn, and I feel like if it's not broken, then you don't need to fix it. But her recent explosion in popularity, I feel like, is because of her personality and aesthetic changes. So I get why she's popular, but it's not for me. Geekdom 101 says, Batman should not only kill, but kill frequently, because fuck it, let's make life easier. Now, if we're talking real life stuff, then yeah, I totally agree that Batman should just kill the bad guys and move on. That way it's not creating this constant revolving door in Arkham where the villains go in and they come out to just cause more harm, and it gets kind of ridiculous. And there's that infamous Wonder Woman quote going around, which is like, there's a reason why she doesn't have these big rogues galleries like Batman, Superman, and Flash, is because she kills them, which is a bit of betrayal of Wonder Woman as a character, since one of her defining things is that she actually tries to help and rehabilitate her villains, but that's another thing for another day. In the comics, though, I really do like that Batman is very defined by his villains, and by having them around and letting them build up their identities, they are just as integral to the plot as Batman himself. And in fact, any hero is basically only as good as his villains, at least for some of the compelling storylines. So if Batman was a real person, yes, please, kill them, move on with our lives, and maybe that reveals a lot about me, but in the books, not a big fan of him killing people. It also kind of goes against the whole, his origin story. At Renfied says, Batman could do more for Gotham as Bruce Wayne than as a crazy guy in a bat suit. But here's the thing, he does both. He does a lot as Bruce Wayne, and he also does a lot as Batman. And I don't think that the solution for every problem is just more rich people in business suits throwing money at things. Also, it wouldn't make for an entertaining book, but you could say that a lot of criticisms for things. But also, Batman is not meant for the big long-term things that you can get accomplished with money and being a businessman. Batman exists as, the Joker's gonna blow up the city with a nuclear bomb if we don't stop him, so we need to fix this. Gotham would have been leveled so many times over, and the villains would have won so many times if there wasn't a Batman to take them down, that you can't get that from the regular GCPD, and you can't get that from Bruce Wayne just being billionaire playboy. So I do like the blend that they have of him doing a lot as Bruce Wayne and as Batman, but to say that not having the Batsuit and not going out as a vigilante would just not be as beneficial as just throwing money at problems, personally, I don't see it. At Mage of the Stage says, Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns are not as good as people make them out to be. Well, honestly, Frank Miller would agree with you. He's not a huge fan of those books, especially nowadays. But I am a big believer that going so obsessively into the grimdark isn't necessarily all that good. It feels more like middle school edginess, and while yes, The Killing Joke and The Dark Knight Returns were massively influential, and they have played a huge part in comic book history, yes, they are a bit overblown and really aren't as great as people circle jerking them want to make them out to be. At Harv's Baxter says, I don't like Heath Ledger as the Joker in the Dark Knight movies. I personally disagree. I think that Heath Ledger did a great job, and I think he's what really propelled The Dark Knight into the smash hit that it was, because like I said earlier, a hero can only be as good as his villains, especially in a movie like The Dark Knight Returns. Now, do I think that it's the greatest thing in the world? Well, I do think that Heath Ledger's Joker is the best Joker that we've gotten on the big screen, but personally, I think that, the Joker that we got in Batman the Animated Series with Mark Hamill was a good blend of, humorous and silly, and he can be pretty grimdark sometimes. I feel like that balance is what the Joker should walk the line of. He shouldn't just be overly sadistic. I think he needs to have a comedic side as well, since that just kind of is the point of the character. I do love Heath Ledger's portrayal, but I feel like we can still have another great Joker if given the chance and the right actor taking the role, and along with some proper writing. At I Am Guitarded says, Damian Wayne is the best Robin. His character has finally been fleshed out with Rebirth. He is no longer an edgy jerk, he is now a decent and caring person. Pairing him with Superboy Jonathan Kent and Super Sons is perfect for him. I agree that Damian Wayne is a really good character in that he's gone so far away from just the spoiled, obnoxious brat that he was originally portrayed as, but I would say that he was better than in Rebirth. He's been this more fleshed out three-dimensional character for quite a while, even before the Flashpoint reboot. Damian has definitely been a character that has grown, and I feel like he gets a bad rap because people have already written him off as this jerk brat character and just ignore all the character development that he's gone through, and I feel that's not entirely fair, and his growth as a character is one of the things that makes him compelling. I also do like how he's been portrayed in Super Sons with Jonathan Kent, like you said. It has been a great book, and I feel like they play off each other very, very well, and they make just for an adorable and amazing dynamic. A dynamic duo, if you will. At Cheesy Fight says, Scooby Doo meets Batman is a masterpiece, and the best use of the character of Batman and his universe since its inception. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's the best use of Batman and his entire side of the DC universe since its inception. I think that's just... I feel like that was more hyperbole for a joke, but no, I do agree that any of the interactions that we've seen of Scooby-Doo and Batman have been fantastic, and especially the old campier versions of Batman and Robin. They do work really well, and it also brings Batman back to being a detective, which is his thing. He is the world's greatest detective. He made his first appearance in Detective Comics, and the opportunity to have more mysteries is always fantastic when it comes to Batman stuff. I just say make him not as, super grimdark edgy, but keep him campy, and it's great. Nate the Great says, the Joker is an overused villain, and the recent explosion of the absolute worship of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, while amazing, gets really annoying after all the teeny boppers start believe that it's the Joker that's actually right and Batman is wrong. So, I think I've made a video on this in the past, but the Joker has gotten very overblown in Batman comics, and it doesn't really give other villains a chance to shine and flourish, because why do a book or a storyline about any other character as the villain when you can just make it the Joker and they sell all these copies? Because people love the Joker and they love just, Joker's the best thing ever. But we need more Penguin stories. We need more Scarecrow stories. We need more Ra's al Ghul stories. We need more Clayface stories. Batman has so many interesting villains at his disposal that I think that just always going back and talking about, oh, the Joker is the greatest thing ever for the Batman universe, I feel like it prevents us from telling more great stories using the characters that we all know and love. But also, people believing that the Joker is actually right and Batman is wrong, you're going to get that no matter what. You're always going to have people that side with the villain, and the Joker can be sympathetic even though he is just pure chaos, but there's also people that are just going to try to be, look at me, I'm so edgy, of course I believe the Joker's right, I'm a Joker minion, da-da-da-da-da. It's a whole thing. Yeah. Not for me. But I really do think that we need to back off on the Joker a little bit and give more villains a time to shine. At Andy Stein Music says, I want to see a movie with old Batman, like Bruce in his mid-late 60s. I agree, a Batman Beyond movie would be fantastic. But in all seriousness though, I'm sure you're talking about like a grizzled, older Batman, which we kind of got in The Dark Knight Returns, but I still wouldn't say that he'd be in his 60s. I feel like he would probably be in a mech at that point, which, I don't know, kind of lose a bit of the Batman feel for me, but I always think that an older Bruce Wayne works really well as a mentor. But then again, Batman Beyond is one of my favorite things about Batman and of any Batman things ever produced. So yeah, I kind of just want them to make that movie. At FCapZ72 says, Batman cannot beat everyone with prep time. But that's kind of the point. And I get it, people are tired of hearing like, oh, Batman can do anything with prep time. But first of all, how much prep time does he get? Because if given the time to have the perfect scenario, then yeah, he can pretty much do anything. And you also don't factor in the fact that he has, this huge amount of cash that he can buy anything with, and he has access to the Justice League and other superheroes. So he can get stuff from Wonder Woman, Superman. He can find counters for basically everything. And I know that it's boring to say that Batman can't beat everyone, if in any versus fight, Batman's gonna win as long as he has prep time. It's boring, but it's also not wrong. At Lord Zephyr says, the Lego movie was okay. The Lego Batman movie sucked. It was just a worse version of the Lego movie with some Batman shit in it. It made no worthwhile use of the Batman IP, just some lazy jokes and gags. I disagree. I think the Lego Batman movie was a lot of fun, and I think it's one of the best uses of the Batman IP that we've had in a long time. But if you didn't like the Lego movie to begin with, well, then the Lego Batman movie probably wouldn't interest you, and I don't know why you went and saw it if... I don't know. I really do feel like the Lego Batman movie was a huge love letter to Batman fans, and having been very versed in Bat lore, I caught so many little obscure things from the comics, the movies, the shows, and it clearly had a lot of love and effort put into it, which made it extra special for me. But then I'm also a little bit biased because I'm a big fan of Lego bricks, even as an adult. I like building sets whenever I get an opportunity to, and there's, as much as I love the Lego movie, I feel like the Lego Batman movie just took that to 100. But that bias could also be because I'm a huge Lego fan and a huge Batman fan. Either way, though, I think it's a little bit ignorant to say that it is a bad film. I think that, at the very least, you can argue that it is a well-constructed film from an objective standpoint. If it's not your cup of tea, though, that's totally fine. At Astro Orbiter says, Red Hood sucks. He's the Shadow the Hedgehog of the Batman universe and has like one Goku story. I know you meant good, but Goku is silly. Red Hood can be a little too grimdark, a little too edgy, but while I would say that Under the Red Hood is probably his most defining story, which is probably the one good story that you're talking about, I've been a big fan of the Red Hood and the Outlaw series that started with Rebirth. That would be Red Hood and the Outlaws Volume 2. That's him, Artemis, and Bizarro. It's been fantastic and a great exploration of Jason Todd's character, and it's really been letting him grow. I think that some of his stuff that he did before, like in the original Red Hood and the Outlaw series, and I think Red Hood Lost Days I read and wasn't very good, and I'm not a big fan of how he's used in like Battle for the Cowl, but they have been making some great strides with the character in recent times, and I feel like we're getting to a point where Jason Todd can become a much better character moving forward. But yeah, by and large, he's a little too Shadow the Hedgehog edgelord for me, and I can understand why people aren't a fan of that, because, well, I'm not. At Thanks Max says, he should at least get some valid power armor. He's way too vulnerable. I feel like that loses a lot of the point of Batman, because once you get Batman power armor, he's basically just an overpowered Iron Man, which, I don't know, I feel like you lose the personal aspect, whereas Tony Stark in his shell of power armor feels a little bit more distant from things, whereas Batman is very much a person. He is very caring, even though he's very cold and distant, and he has a more personal touch with his villains. I feel like even though he's a loner, the personality is a big feel, and also the whole point of Batman is that he is the peak of human physicality. So giving him power armor just kind of ruins all of that. Why does he need to hone his body and mind if he just has power armor that can relegate a lot of those tasks for him? Personally not a fan, but we've seen Batman power armor done before. It's cool, but not for the day-to-day stuff. Now, these are just some of the unpopular Batman opinions that I got on Twitter, but if you have any of your own, or you want to talk about the fan opinions or my opinion on the opinions, then please leave all of that in the comments down below, and maybe we'll touch on it on a future episode. And if you're new here, this isn't the normal type of content that I put out on the channel. I usually do more history and trivia stuff. But if you like Batman, then you might be interested in all of that. So I actually have a specifically curated playlist of all of my Batman videos, so maybe give that a watch. But anyway, I hope you at least enjoyed what you've seen, and maybe I'll see you next time.